Assalamu alaikum. Chapter 5 Igneous Activity of the Physical Geology course presented by Khalid Lamrouni, PhD of Geology from Texas A&M University. And Khalid Lamrouni is a staff member at the Department of Earth Sciences, Garyunis University, Benghazi, Barka State, or Cyrenaica State. The reference used is Essentials of Geology. This is the Department of Earth Sciences, Garyunis University, and this is the main entrance of Garyunis University. This is the Prince of Barga State or Cyrenaica State, Idris Sunusi, the founder of Garyunis University, and here's the flag of Cyrenaica behind the Prince Idris Sunusi, Prince of Barga, and this is the chief commander of the Sunusi army, Omar al-Mukhtar. This is the capital of Barga State or Cyrenaica State, Benghazi City, and this is the map of Barga State or Cyrenaica State. Outlines: the nature of volcanic activity, materials extruded during an eruption, lava, gases, pyroclastic material, and then we'll look at volcanoes and volcanic eruption, volcanoes, chambers, parts of the volcano chamber, vent, caldera, fissures, flanks, parasitic cones, and then three groups of volcanoes: shield volcano, cinder volcano, composite volcano, or stratovolcano, and then formation of caldera, fissure eruption, pyroclastic flows, variation in properties among magmas of different composition, intrusive igneous activity, and their classification based on shape and orientation, like dikes, sills, laccolith, batholith, hotspots, igneous activity and plate tectonics, origin of magma, melting point and partial melting, distribution of igneous activity along the oceanic ridges, which is divergent boundaries, adjacent to oceanic trenches, which is subduction zones, and within plates themselves, mainly hotspots. Igneous activity, the nature of volcanic activity. Volcanoes either quiet or catastrophic, loud. Okay, although some volcanic eruptions may be cataclysmic, many are relatively quiescent. Cataclysmic, loud, eruptive volcanoes, and quiescent, they're quiet volcanoes. What controls that? The factors which determine the nature of the volcanic eruption, if it's quiet or loud, include the magma's composition, magma's temperature, and the amount of dissolved gases the magma contains. So three components: magma's composition, temperature, and the dissolved gases. And these three factors affecting the magma's mobility or viscosity. So a magma's magma's viscosity will directly related to its silica content. The magma with more silica content will be more viscous, and the mobility will be very slow. The magma with less silica content will be mobile. But there's another point. The dissolved gases tend to increase the fluidity of magma. So if you have more gases dissolved in the magma will be more mobile and less viscous. So silica increases viscosity, gases decreases viscosity. So if you look at the types of magma we have basaltic, intermediate, andesitic, and granitic. Basaltic lavas, they have less silica, so the eruptions, for example, in Hawaii, they have basaltic, all these volcanoes there, they have basaltic lava. Always the eruption is very quiet. So we call them quiescent. And allow the expanding gases to migrate upwards and escape from the volcano vent with relative ease. On the other side, the volcanoes bordering the Pacific Ocean are explosive, loud, cataclysmic. because of the high viscous magmas. They are rich in silica, so the mobility is too low, and that impede or stop the upward migration of gases, and that's why the explosion happened. Materials extruded during an eruption. Explosive eruptions will eject huge quantities of broken blocks. Number one, lava. Two, bombs. Three, and fine ash and dust. And besides that, these volcanoes will emit large amounts of gases. Besides the broken rocks, lava, bombs, fine ashes, in large amounts of gases. So let's go to lava flow, materials that extruded. First thing, lava flow. Second, gases. And third, pyroclastic material. So lava flow, there are two types of lava flow. Two types of lava flow, which are Bahoho and Aa. Those two names, Bahoho and Aa, coming from local areas, and this area was the Hawaiian islands. Bahoho flow, fluid basaltic lava. Example, the Hawaii congeal, form a relatively smooth skin, wrinkless as the still motion subsurface lava continue to advance, ropey and resemble to twisted braids and ropes. So how it looks, the other one, flow, basaltic lava, has a surface of rough, jagged blocks with dangerous sharp edges and spiny projections. Let's look at these two types of lava. This is the the rigid, rugged lava, and the lower here is Bahoho, which is smooth surfaces with ropey shape. Here we have this ropey skin wrinkles. This is Bahoho shape. And as we said, the names came from Hawaii. And here we have other types of lava, palo lava. Let's go back to the definitions. Two gases. The gaseous portion of most magmas believed to compose from 1 to 5% of the total weight of the magma. And most of this is in the form of water vapor. So gases, the magma, will be in the form of vapor, water vapor. Pyroclastic material. Superheated gases expand 1,000-fold as they blow pulverized rocks and lava from the vent. So lava plus pulverized rocks, like rock fragments. So here the two types of lava flow, and here we have palo lavas, usually form at the sea floor. And here we have volcanic ash and volcanic fragments. We call them lapilli or cinders, and volcanic bombs. This one, the scale here, 30 millimeters, 3 centimeters. This one almost like 6, 9, 12 centimeters. This bomb ejected during eruption. And here pyroclastic flow, which is ash and bombs, and the car here for scale. This is volcanic pyroclastic flow. So volcanoes are volcanic eruption. Successive eruptions from a central vent results in a mountainous accumulation of material known as volcano. The volcano is just accumulation of volcanic material. It consists of crater, chamber, vent, caldera, fissure, and the flanks, the sides, and parasitic cones. Let's look at the picture to know. So here the magma chamber and there's a conduit. This conduit, we call it vent, where the magma passing through the conduit to come out as lava. And the top part of this conduit, we call it crater, the depression here. And there are fractures. Magma goes through fractures outside to form lava and form parasitic cones, small cones besides the main volcanic cone. And here we see the pyroclastic flow and the bombs ejected in the air. Call them pyroclastic material. So let's read back through. So located at the summit of many volcanoes is the steep-walled depression called crater, which is connected to a magma chamber via a pipe-like conduit or vent. Some volcanoes have unusual large summit depression that exceed 1 kilometer in diameter and are known as calderas. So crater and caldera, just the top depression at the mountain, and if the crater is so big, like exceed 1 kilometer in diameter, we call it caldera. Sometimes it's easier for the magma or escaping gas to push through fissures on the volcano flanks, the sides of the volcano, create fissures, and continued activity from a flank eruption may build a so-called parasitic cones, small cones or small volcanoes. And volcanoes are continually lowered by the force of weathering and erosion. So here we have fissures along the flanks, the sides, creating small cones here. We call them parasitic cones. And as we said, the crater is the depression here at the summit of the volcano. If it's more than 1 kilometer, like wide, large, we call it caldera. 3 groups of volcanoes. We divide them based on the eruptive pattern and the characteristic forms. There are 3: shield volcano, cinder cone volcano, and composite cone volcano. Shield volcanoes, they erupt with basaltic lava. They are so quiet, like the Hawaiian island volcanoes, and they are so big, huge in size. The opposite is composite volcanoes. They erupt andesitic magma or lava, andesitic lava, which is very viscous. So they are loud, and the the cinder cone, the third type, ejects lava fragments. And cinder cones are easily eroded because they are composed of unconsolidated material. So shield cones, basaltic, made up of basaltic lava. The composite cones, they're made up of andesitic lava, and they're so viscous, so it's very eruptive. But the shield is very quiet. And the scale of the shield volcano is so huge, big, like across the island. The whole island is just one volcano. So if you look at the at the picture, the sea level and the whole island, the Hawaii island, is just one volcano. It's a caldera. The caldera is here, the big caldera, which is the big crater. The big crater, we call it caldera. And if we compare it by size with the composite cone and cinder cone, we can see how huge it is. So this is a picture of cinder cone in Mexico, and this is a figure for composite volcano. So to recap, shield volcanoes made up or formed by the eruption of basaltic lava, and they are so quiet. Example is the Hawaiian island. composite volcanoes or stratovolcanoes, they erupt andesitic, viscous lava. They are so loud and catastrophic. And cone or cinder cone, they just made up of fragments, lava fragments. Formation of caldera, which is the large craters. We have two theories for the formation of caldera, either subsidence or explosion. If we look at the model here, we have a magma chamber and we have vents emitting or erupting lava outside the volcano. And when the material, the lava material or lava chamber emptied out, here's not clear enough, let's go to the next figure, yes, here, where here the chamber is full of magma, but after the eruption, like half of the chamber is empty. So we have two options, either the whole summit here collapsed down, it's fractured, collapsed down under its weight, and then the area filled up with water, or if the gases here expanded and we got a strong eruption, their strong eruption can destroy or bluster the whole caldera and still form this huge depression. So either the roof collapsed down or the roof blusted, and we'll get those big craters that later will be filled with water. And this is the example for these huge craters. This is the Wizard Island, big, huge crater. So be careful. This beautiful lake is just above a volcano chamber. Table shows variations in properties among magmas of different compositions. So here the property: basaltic, andesitic, granitic magma. Silica content. In the basaltic magma is 50%. That means it has less viscosity, the least viscosity. Andesitic is intermediate, about 60%. The viscosity is intermediate. Granitic has most, about 70%, so the viscosity is so high. High viscosity, so the mobility is very low for this magma. Tendency to form pyroclastics. With basaltic rocks, least because they are mobile. Intermediate with andesitic, and high tendency to form pyroclastic with granitic rocks because they're granitic magma because it's very viscous. The tendency to form lava for basaltic rocks, high, yes, because they're very viscous, and andesitic intermediate, and granitic the least because there's no, this is very viscous. The least is very viscous because it has a lot of silica for granitic, but for basaltics it has the lowest amount of silica. Melting point for basaltic rocks, it's the highest. For andesitic, it's intermediate. For granite, it's the lowest. Intrusive igneous rocks or intrusive igneous activity. Intrusive igneous bodies are generally classified according to their shape as either tabular or massive, and by their orientation with respect to the country host rock as discordant or concordant. So if we look at the figures first, so we can understand. If we look at the shape, so if the red color is just the magma flow. So if they are parallel to the beds, like this red horizontal, parallel to the bedding planes, we call them cells. But if they are cutting like these fractures and filled with magma, and then crystallize it, we call them dikes cutting across. Okay? And based on the shape of their local lens shape concentration of magma and then crystallize it, solidify it, we call them localith. But if it's like huge chambers or huge bodies of magmas accumulated under the earth, we call them batholiths. And here example of the cell. You see the cell between the sedimentary beds, filling up between the sedimentary beds, this black color, there's cells. Nature. This is the batholith, like plutons, plutonic volcanic rocks, and then exposed to the surface and form huge masses of igneous rocks. We call them batholiths. So let's go to the definitions. We said discordant and concordant. Discordant if they cut across existing sedimentary rocks, like sedimentary beds, like dikes. And concordant if the intrusive body. Concordant if they form parallel to the existing sedimentary beds. We call them cells. So we have dikes and cells. So dikes, masses produced when magma is injected into fractures that cut across rock layers once crystallized. Cells, tabular bodies, forced when magma is injected along sedimentary bedding surfaces. Cells form at only rather shallow depths where the pressure exerted by the weight of the overlaying strata is relatively low. Now we go to laccoliths and batholiths. Laccoliths are similar to cells because they form when magma is introduced between sedimentary layers in a near surface environment. However, unlike cells, they are different than cells. The magma that generate laccoliths is believed to be quite viscous, have high viscosity, but generate cells, low viscosity. This thick, non-fluid magma collects as lens-shaped masses that arches the overlaying strata upwards. And batholiths are by far the largest intrusive igneous bodies, like Idaho. Batholiths, they crystallize under the surface. Hotspots are molten pockets from the rock of the asthenosphere exists in the molten state. So this is the subject, hotspots. So we'll go back again. We have laccoliths in all of these bodies, plutonic bodies. When they cool and crystallize, will form batholiths. And here we have cells going parallel to the bedding planes and dikes cutting across the bedding planes. And then here we see the volcanoes and the eruptions. And here they are cinder cone and composite cone. And we have fissures here. Now we'll look at the origin of hydrothermal deposits. So we have geysers on the surface where that water vapor and hydrothermal deposits coming from. They are coming from near subsurface magma chambers where the fluids heated and injected to the surface. And sometimes we have veins, hydrothermal veins deposits, and just faults and fractures will work as conduits to release the heat to the surface. Okay, the hotspots. Volcanism on tectonic plate moving over hotspot. So let's assume this is a tectonic plate moving and there's under it a hotspot. The hotspot will heat the bottom of this plate and then create a dome and fractures, and the basalt or basaltic magma will flood on the plate surface. So they say flood basalts. And the plate is still in motion. And when this plate moves, the magma will, or the hotspot will stay in its place and create another volcano. And the old large basaltic flood will cool down and form an island. The example is like the Hawaiian island chain. It's just hotspot, no subduction zone, no convergent divergent zones. Here the formation of volcanic neck, this 1,700 feet, about 500 meters, like half a kilometer height. How they form? This is the neck or the vent of the volcano, filled with magma, crystallize it, and then all sedimentary layers, sedimentary rock layers, weather it, and what's left after erosion, just these crystalline necks that we see here. Igneous activity and plate tectonics. Volcanoes located in the deep ocean basins primarily extrude basaltic lava. That means the mid or deep ocean basins, that means we have divergent boundaries. Divergent boundaries, they extrude basaltic lava. Whereas those adjacent to oceanic trenches extrude mainly andesitic lava. So where we have subduction zone, that means subduction zones on the other side give me andesitic intermediate lava. So mid-oceanic ridges, divergent boundaries give me basaltic lava, subduction zones. Along the subduction zones or convergent boundaries, we get andesitic and granitic lava. Origin of magma. And we'll discuss this again because we discussed in chapter 4, the igneous rocks. We'll discuss it now. Magma can be produced when a rock is heated to its melting point. That's correct. The more the water, the lower the melting point. That means if we have vapors and water in the magma, the melting point will be lower. We'll need lower temperatures to melt it. We don't need to go to higher temperatures to get the melting point if we have more water vapor. Okay, moreover, the effect of water on the melting point is magnified by pressure increasing. However, the increase in temperature with depth is partially offset by the increase in pressure. So at deeper settings, even if you have higher temperatures, the pressure will cancel out, the increase in pressure will cancel out the effect of the temperature. So the melting point you need higher and higher and higher temperature, way higher. And now we go to partial melting. Occurs when the molten portion oozes from the mixture before melting is complete. It will have a composition different from that of the original rock. Partial melting produce most, if not all, magma melting, if not all of the magma. Melting is not complete in this. Okay, so let's see where that happened. The decompression or decompression melting or partial melting when here at the asthenosphere, when the magma rises, when the rocks at this zone, what will happen? The pressure will decrease. And when the pressure decreases, the temperature will be enough to melt the rocks partially, and that will release the oozes of the ultramafic rocks and create different composition, which is a mafic or basaltic rocks, and that magma, the basaltic magma, will rise up to reach the divergent boundaries or mid-oceanic ridges and erupt basaltic lava with low viscosity, low silica content, with quiet eruption, no explosions. So there are other two important points here. In nature, deeply buried rocks melt for one of two reasons. If they are heated to their melting point, correct? And two, a reduction of confining pressure can lower the melting temperature sufficiently to trigger melting without increasing temperature. And that's what happened here. What we call it partial melting or decompression melting. It happened at the upper mantle here at the asthenosphere. Distribution of igneous activity. Active areas are found along the oceanic ridges, which is divergent boundaries, adjacent to oceanic trenches, which is subduction zones, and within plates themselves, mainly hotspots. And they're saying here more volcanoes are located in the vicinity of convergent plate boundaries. Good. Spreading center volcanism, subduction zone volcanism, intraplate volcanism. We call them these three. Spreading center volcanism, which is the mid-oceanic ridges, which is the divergent boundaries. The largest volume of volcanic rocks is produced along the oceanic ridges, where seafloor spreading is active, and mostly basaltic lava. Subduction zone volcanism, rocks with andesitic to granitic composition, rich in silica, along subduction zones, confined to the continents and to the volcanic island chains, which lie along the oceanic margins. The third type, intraplate volcanism, because basaltic extrusions occur on the continents as well as within the oceanic basins. So hotspots, the intraplate volcanism, can be found in the oceans and can be found on the continents. And that was coming from the partial melting of the upper mantle rocks. So the process here, we call it decompression. And we just explained decompression melting. So partial melting of the upper mantle rocks is the more probable source of this activity because we have no subduction zones, no convergent boundaries, no divergent boundaries. The only source for this basaltic magma is hotspots coming from the upper mantle rocks. The source of some intraplate basaltic magma are hot mantle plumes that originate at great depth. Upon reaching the crust, these structures begin to spread laterally. The result is localized volcanic region, a few hundred kilometers across, called hotspots. So hotspots, they are like hundreds of kilometers, regions of hundreds of kilometers of volcanic activity, either on continents or in the ocean crust. And here we have the ring of the fire, which is mainly zones, convergent zones here along the Pacific Ocean. And we have here these divergent zones, also volcanic activity zones. And the ring of the fire is in the Pacific Ocean. And this is Atlantic Ocean here. So let's look at the hotspots. Here we have hotspots in the continent, intravolcanism. This is in the Yellowstone. And here we have hotspots in the ocean. This is in Hawaii. And we call it intravolcanism oceanic. Subduction zones. We have subduction zone here, Aleutian Island. It's a volcanism area. And we have subduction zone along the Andes Mountains, South America. By the way, the hotspots, basaltic lava, the subduction zones here, andesitic to granitic lava. And here we have mid-Atlantic ridges, which is divergent boundaries, and it's basaltic again. The convergent zones or convergent boundaries, they are granitic and andesitic. And here we're at Ghafar Rift Zone in Africa. We call it spreading center volcanism. It's continental. It's just forming this triple junction. So the take-home message, we now understand the nature of volcanic activity, the material extruded during an eruption, lava flow, gases, pyroclastic material. We know volcanoes and volcanic eruption, and we know the parts of the volcano. Chamber, vent, calderas, fissures, flanks, parasitic cones. And then three groups of volcanoes: shield volcanoes, mainly basaltic lava; cinder volcanoes, and cinder volcanoes, and composite volcanoes. One is granitic acidic, and the other one is made of pyroclastic material. And then formation of caldera. We said caldera that forms due to the collapse of the roof or the blast of the roof during eruption. And fissures eruption, and pyroclastic flows, and variation properties among magmas of different composition. We compare them from silica content in the amount of gas content, in the viscosity, the mobility, and the tendency to form pyroclastics. And then we went through intrusive igneous activity and their classification based on shape and orientation, and found out there are dikes, cells, dikes cutting through the sedimentary rocks, cells crystallize along the bedding planes parallel to the sedimentary rocks, and we find laccolith and batholith. Laccolith small lenses, and batholith they're just huge crystallized plutonic bodies under the surface. And then we talked about hotspots that got their magma from the upper mantle due to decompression melting, or partial melting, and the magma at hotspots is basaltic. And then igneous activity and plate tectonics, we find out the plate tectonics are zones of igneous activity, either divergent zone or convergent zone or hotspots, or convergent divergent, yes. And then origin of magma, melting point, and partial melting. And distribution of igneous activity, we find them, the igneous rocks along the oceanic ridges, adjacent to oceanic trenches. Along oceanic ridges, that means divergent boundaries. Adjacent to oceanic trenches, that means convergent boundaries. And within plates themselves due to hotspots. And by this, we conclude the lecture of the volcanic activity, and we'll take rest and listen to 3 minutes of the national anthem of Cyrenaica State. Thank you very